Welcome to the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcast, please follow, hit the like button, or any subscribes. It really helps us with the algorithms. Santa Cruz Coffee Break is produced by the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum. All opinions are those of the speakers. We invite you to join us on the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF for more fun. Now, let's get on with this installment of Santa Cruz Coffee Break.
I'm live here, maybe.
That's great. It's a perfect way to be to introduce number 72. And we are so blessed today to have Lloyd Baggs with us from LR Baggs. There's a connection there between who we have and the name. I'm sure you can all tell. But Lloyd's going to give us a little history and have a little fun, and then talk to us about a couple of new, absolutely revolutionary pickups that we are so excited to hear about.
Well, thank you very much. So I'm all yours. What would you like to know?
Well, yeah, you guys just had this great conversation about growing up in Berkeley, and I'm really sorry that we didn't record it. But and something you said is the first guitar you bought was a complete piece of crap, but you took it home and shaved the braces.
Yeah.
Where did that kind of chutzpah come from? I mean, really.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I kind of feel sheepish to this day about it, but I got my start in making guitars. I got interested in guitars and thought I'd try to play the blues. It turns out I really sucked at it, but I love the guitar anyway. So I was living in Berkeley at the time, and there was this wonderful store by the name of Lundberg's, and oh my God, the treasures they had in that store, just amazing. And so I started buying the cheapest guitar I could get my hands on, which I don't know, might have been $100, $200, something like that, but I was kind of interested in the physics of the guitar, so I would get in there and with a chisel or whatever and shave the braces and see if I could make the thing sound better. And I don't think I really did, but Lundberg's had this policy at the time where you could trade back a guitar at the same price that you'd paid if you traded up. So I think I probably ruined 3 or 4 guitars on my way to this 000 21 Brazilian rosewood herringbone from, might have been 4041, that when I was fast forward here to establishing my pickup business, I sold that guitar to David Lindley for $1,000, and then tried to buy it back a few times, and David, God bless him, he would never let anything go, but he told me that Merle Haggard offered him a blank check for that guitar and he wouldn't take it. So, I mean, anyway, but that got me into that shaving braces thing, kind of got me into making guitars, because as I said, I sucked at playing it. And so then I built my first guitar in my garage in Berkeley. It must have been, I started it in 74. Yeah, something like that. And I had a beautiful original Washburn oval hole carved top along the way that I just loved. And so I thought, well, I'm going to make that. And so I bought some wood from some guy over in the city that had made guitars for Jerry Garcia or something like that, and I bought a set of some wood and just went to it. I bought the only book that had anything at all to do with how to make a guitar, and the chapter on tone was about 3 paragraphs. But anyway, you know, I I started building this guitar, and I made this carved top. I made a carved top, oval hole, round hole carved top guitar, and it wasn't very good, but the day I was working in the city at the time, and so the day I was going to go home to string it up, one of my friends was encouraging me, telling me he knew I was going to string it up that day. And he said, probably sound like a 10-penny nail hitting the asphalt on a hot day. So it actually sounded a little bit better. And, and about halfway through that guitar, I just knew I loved building guitars, and that's what I was going to do for my life. And um, through my employment in Los Angeles previously, I had gotten to know Ry Cooder, and I was in the fine art business, and his wife was an artist, so I got to know Ry through Susan, and so I took the guitar down to Ry. Just to see what he thought, and then maybe in the hopes that he'd like me to make one for him, and he did. He asked me if I'd make one for him. So, okay, great. So I moved from San Francisco down to Los Angeles at the time because I knew that's where the musicians were. There was a bigger music scene in LA at the time. So I me and my girlfriend got a loft in an old fire station in downtown LA. I built my shop, and this loft, we were there for 11 years ultimately, and it's about a half a mile east of what the of either the Staples or Crypto Center is now. So it was in the bowels of downtown Los Angeles, and we were there for 11 years. I'm kind of a city rat, so I really kind of enjoyed it. And so I set about making guitars and building my clientele. And ultimately, ultimately, I made 32 acoustic guitars. And I made two for Ry, and one for Jackson Brown, one for Janis Ian, and a number of other professional jazz musicians in LA. And um, I was, I was blessed with a pretty good clientele, but I was really working hard on this tone thing. And as I said, the only information I could get on guitar tone was paltry, but I knew that violin makers had studied that kind of thing, and so I found this crazy group of scientists called the Catgut Acoustical Society that were physicists, electrical engineers, you name it, like really eminent scientists that were trying to reverse engineer Stradivari. And so I joined this group only understanding 3% of what they were talking about, but started to duplicate some of their tests on guitars, like now people use laser interferometry to freeze the modes of a guitar top, and that's pretty commonplace. But back in the day, I just had an old Radio Shack speaker and some salt and pepper and a sweep generator, so I could see what the modes were doing and trying to learn what a top was doing. And really it was just all about using some science to fast track the experience part so I could build better guitars uh, sooner and establish my reputation.
Well, and
Oh,
at some point you gave up on better and started working on louder, I assume.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, that happened pretty organically. About that time, about that time, Ry was really doing a lot. Ry was one of the kind of the first guys that really dive in really hard in amplifying an acoustic guitar. He was one of the pioneers. And so he'd bring all kinds of contraptions down to my shop to install in the guitar that I'd built for him. And he was touring Europe and Japan a lot at the time. And um, his wife was friends with the then president of Takamine, Mas Harade. And so on this one trip to Japan, they invited Ry to the factory, and of course he played a little gig for him. And then he when he came back, he told me, he said, I never let this guitar out of my hands, but I have this feeling that they're going to copy this guitar. So, 6, 8 months goes by, and I had just finished a second acoustic for him, and he was working on Bop Till You Drop. And I get this call one afternoon and says, "Hey, Lloyd, how'd you like to come down to Warner Brothers? So something I'd like you to hear." And I'm going, "Oh, cool. Okay. He's using this guitar on this album." I'm like, "Oh, this is going to be good." And I walk into the studio and I saw what I thought was the guitar I had built for him. And so then he brings me into the control room and plays the first instrumental track on that album, and my jaw was on the floor. I mean, through those big soffitted monitors, the big monitors at Warner's, and I mean, I was like blown away. It sounded incredible, and I turned to him and I said, "What in the heck did you mic that thing?" He said, "Well, that's what I wanted you to see. I didn't mic it. That remember I told you I thought Takamine might copy your guitar?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, that was it, and they put their new pickup system in it. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it?"
Aha.
Excuse me? And so that was a weird, weird, weird moment, and that was the moment. That was it. That's where I turned on a dime. And so I was the weirdest combination of excited, thrilled, and pissed. Those, those it's hard to describe how you can have those emotions going on at the same time. But ultimately, I was really excited about this. He said, "I never let it out of my hands. I swear, but they sent it to me and it just works, doesn't it?" And I'm going, "Yeah." So um, then I remember sitting out in my car for 20, 30 minutes after I left the studio and alternately fuming and being excited, fuming, excited, fuming, excited. And, the nickel dropped into the slot. I said, you know, this is where the industry's going, and I want to be a part of it. And, and honestly, I was getting tired of sanding and finishes by that point. Making a guitar is easy. People don't understand how difficult a good finish is. And the guitar was the easy part. The finish was like it was toxic and hard, a lot of work, and then of course you could always sand through or buff through. And so anyway, here comes this pickup thing. And so about 3 months later, um, Ry had arranged for he and I to meet with Mr. Harade at the Anaheim NAMM show when it was at the Disneyland Hotel. And so here I am with Ry Cooder, an American treasure, trucking down the tin in my beat to crap old pickup truck, and I was like, I look back on it now and I shudder. But anyway, Ryan and I drove to the show together and met with Mr. Harade, and very gracious man. He had a translator there. And so basically I just said, "Hey, uh, thanks for copying my guitar. I think you did a pretty nice job. And, you know, um, I would have been actually really happy to help you if you would have asked me. Don't you think you owe me a little something?" And he puts his head down and he goes, "Yeah, what do you want?" And I said, "Okay, well, I make 10 guitars a year. I want to amplify them. And I know you don't sell your pickups to anybody, but will you sell me 10 systems a year?" And he looked at me like I was a crazy man and said, stuck out his hand, said, "Okay, you're on. That's all you want?" "Yep, that's all I want." So a month or so goes by, a couple of systems land in my lap. And of course, I took one apart and it, it had, if you guys remember the old Takamine pickup system, which is still great, it had this boat anchor thing that hung underneath the bridge that was just you would never dream of putting something like that in a nice guitar. So basically I just thought, okay, well, let me reverse engineer this thing. And I didn't know anything about electronics or piezo, or I didn't know anything. So um, I got busy working on the pickup, and I would scrape hot dots to get the piezo out of them. And the first thing that worked was 6 hot dots embedded in a bridge below the saddle in epoxy. And that actually sounds pretty good. So, that was the first thing I did that sounded decent. So, but I thought, nobody's gonna do, nobody's gonna do this. I couldn't sell this. So then how could I make it into a pickup? And that was what eventually became the LB6.
I- I- it's pretty tough when your would be Ry Cooder, and your first reference to tone would be a 41 Martin. Uh, you know, uh, obviously the right steps. Just, I'm aghast. I was kind of a little bit a part of that LA scene at the same time,
Oh, were
and I
you?
know, yeah, and I worked on the border. And,
Oh,
all these pickup systems. There was these Barkus berries
oh
that were
yeah.
just they were just terrible, and you had to like have glue to stick them on, and then there
Yeah.
was it was Trace Amulet has they were
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
just
That was called the FRAP, flat audio frequency response, or something like that.
yeah,
And that was Arnie Lazarus. That was a genius. That was a genius pickup.
difficult to port with my experience with them. They didn't travel well.
Yeah, Richard, do you know your audio levels kind of coming and going?
Yeah.
I didn't. I'm sorry. Let me move in on that a little bit.
There you
Any
go.
better? Any
Yeah.
better? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the afternoon up here, and it's cold actually.
Yeah.
You're in SLO, right?
Yeah.
I'm in Monterey, and we get that dang cold wind from the
Oh yeah.
ocean
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
yeah.
Just cold.
I used to race downhill mountain bike, and I'd come up to Monterey for the Sea Otter every year.
Yeah, yeah.
And down here we call it sea otter weather. Oh my God. It just cuts right through your skin. There just isn't enough jackets to keep you warm.
Yeah. What the just go away. He's still breathing. Um, the AT&T was a great example of it, with it supposed to be Crosby weather, and they changed it all around this year and really messed it up. Nobody came.
Yeah.
And it rained out. It was great.
Yeah.
Let's move to the new pickups.
Well,
Oh, I know. I want to know the connection between you and Richard Hoover.
Oh, well, gosh. Well, I admired him and his guitars long before I met him. And oh gosh, maybe 20 or some odd years ago, I was just a pup at the Nom show and was looking for a nice guitar to put a pickup in. And I think we were starting to do a little business with Richard, and so he lent me a guitar, a little triple O-ish all mahogany guitar, and which after I played it a couple of times, told him he was never getting it back. I still have the instrument, and so, I've admired him for a long time, and admired what Santa Cruz is about and what Santa Cruz is doing. And so, we've just become friends over the years, um, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Just the natural course of becoming friends, getting to know each other, and you know, we're kind of co-conspirators sometimes on certain things, and we would share some artists, so that helped us connect. Um, and but
Probably probably breaking down in your old pickup trucks at the same time too. So
yeah, you know, that pickup truck that Richard has was the same year of mine. It was basically the same pickup truck. Unfortunately, mine got stolen before we moved out of LA, so I never got to I never got to nurture and nurse it into its old age. But well, it was actually pretty old then. But you know, it was. I really miss that. I still look for that truck every time I see one on the freeway or something like that. I'm going, is that it? You know?
oh yeah. So after the LB6, how many different models of pickups have you made over the years?
Oh gosh. Well, we've been chasing the same thing
Mhm.
since day one. You know, basically, how do you make a amplified acoustic guitar sound respectable? And um, but I'd like to double back to Ry for a minute because his experience set the stage for me. And you know, he was at the time it was pretty much a magnetic pickup and a microphone inside the instrument, and he and a number of other practitioners would have a rack the size of a refrigerator that they would tour with, you know, just to try and make it work with EQs and all this other kind of stuff. And I used to go visit Ry a few times, and I vividly remember his studio and his rack, and he telling me tales about it failing, and he always swore at it. I mean, it was just like it was such it was such a shrine to pain that that was the point at which I went, not only does it have to sound good, it has to be easy and fun to use. So it was that crazy rack of stuff Ry had that only Ry could manipulate that really set the course for our later electronics. But back to your question. Okay, well, we made the LB6. That was that was all we had for a while. And then we did a ribbon first our first under saddle pickup was the thing we called a ribbon transducer, which was a PVDF film die cut thing. It sounded pretty nice for an inner saddle pickup. And then we did the Element, which was a more advanced under saddle pickup that we still make today. Um, but back with the LB6, we did our first duet, which was the LB6 with a microphone. And I think it was the first commercial onboard system. Had a side mount preamp and some controls and a crossover that separated the mic from the pickup and a mixer and a number of artists to this day still use it. Um, and then we did the I-beam, which was our first bridge plate pickup. Um, that sounded pretty good, but you couldn't play it very loud. And that's always actually been one of the Achilles heels of any kind of bridge plate pickup is if you think about a microphone and a vocalist, um, an under saddle pickup is you're eating the mic. If my voice is the guitar, under saddle pickup is you're eating the mic. You're just getting mostly string. And then you move the mic a little further away and you're getting more body with the bridge plate pickup. Then you move the mic a little further away and you're using a microphone. So it becomes more like going from a soloist to the choir. But you need all those voices in the choir to overwhelm that microphone to get the level up. So if it's just your guitar, you know, the further away from the string you get, the more feedback prone the thing's going to be. So, the I-beam was pretty cool, and in certain locations, certain venues, and people willing to, have a little bit of rise rack with them, they could make it work.
Mini rack.
And what's that?
The mini rack.
Yeah, the mini rack. So you remember the pendulum?
Yes.
I mean, that was great. It was a 2-channel thing. The guy that invented it was Greg Galtieri, who was he was he was an engineer from Honeywell or one of those big prestige MIT or something, and it really was pretty cool. So the mic and the pickup guys were in heaven for a while, but it was still a lot of kit to haul around and try to make work. So that's why we built the duet the way we did, is just to make it, plug and play has really always been our mantra, um, because of that rack of rise. And um, we've had a heart for, very few musicians really want to be electrical engineers or recording engineers. And they just want to plug in and sound like what they want to sound like. And, that it's not that easy, but still we feel like it's an appropriate goal
Yeah.
to facilitate that.
I think we all like to play with the knobs and dials and sliders some, but our patience wears off quickly, and we just want good sound. But
Yeah.
there's a little bit of fun in the beginning playing with all the little goodies.
And you actually might be a little unusual in that respect. I mean, a lot of guys are just really allergic to the technology. It's just they just want to. They're entertainers. They're artists, and they don't really. A lot of people just want to plug in and sound good. So that's really what we've been all about. On our trajectory, just trying to get closer and closer to, just plug in. And, so many times your first song for so many of our clients is the sound check. There's the war zone down on Lower Broadway in Nashville. Um, and it's not very pretty out there in most places. You get the guys that can play performing arts centers and the better venues once they get advanced in their career, but most of our customers are weekend warriors playing churches, which is usually a pretty good place, but still, yeah, it's the guys that most of our clientele are working musicians. So, we try to make it easy and rewarding for them to plug in.
Which sounds like a perfect lead into your latest product, which you introduced at NAMM.
Yeah, well, thank you. So we introduced this is part of a product that we introduced last year at NAMM, which was a pickup we call the hi-fi pickup. And if you can see that guitar here in the background, there's two little black dots on the bridge plate, basically underneath the saddle, on either side of that thing in the middle, which we'll talk about later. Those are bridge plate pickups. And since the I-beam, it sounded good, but you couldn't play it very loud. Um, we have been working on bridge plate pickups for a long, long time, and we have a lot more failures than we have successes. And our successes are built on our failures, but we fail a lot. And that's one area where maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I took almost a full year, um, and tried to come up with a bridge plate pickup that had similar feedback rejection to an under saddle pickup. Um, so I thought I had something about 3 years ago. I took it to Nashville. A touring musician with, gosh, a big I think he was playing with the Dixie Chicks. Yeah, he was playing with the Dixies. He had a prototype of it and he loved it, but he was on in-ears. And then I took it to a studio. The recording engineer loved it. Then I took it to a nightclub. It was a disaster area. It didn't feed back. It just sounded awful. So once you put the wedges on it and you're on a small cramped stage, it was like, oh. So anyway, I was pretty disheartened and I thought I'm going to give this a rest for a while. And our general manager, Bo, said, "Hey, Lloyd, can I take a crack at it?" I said, "Well, sure, man, knock yourself out." So, um, he actually pulled the sword out of the rock and came up with what is currently now pretty much what that is. Two separate pickups on either side of the bridge plate under the saddle between the A and the E and the E and the B. And the most notable feature of those pickups is you can play them really loud. Um, we tested them on 20 20 something different guitars here with a big PA. And in all but one guitar, they were the same or slightly better from feedback rejection. And in only one guitar was it worse, and it was maybe 2 or 3 dB worse. It wasn't bad. So then, the team jumped in and we refined them and we introduced those pickups last year, and we won an editor's pick award on them, and we got a few awards. And the most notable feature about the pickups is um, they've got great dynamics. They're really spanky when you get into them, and you play them soft. They're good, but the dynamics are really that was what I was really working on with my prototype, is trying to get some kind of dynamics out of it. Because typically, if you just tape something to the bridge plate, the bridge plate doesn't move that much, so the sound can be a little bit flat. So that was the big deal, was dynamics and feedback rejection. So we were able to, over a period of maybe 6 or 8 more months, refine the design to where we commercialized it at the NOM show last year, and um, it's been doing really well for us. Mostly 5-star reviews on Sweetwater, and yeah, it's just been kind of, we're doing really well with them. It's been a real rewarding product. And the installation is the other thing is almost all bridge plate pickups you have to glue in the guitar also. The I-beam you didn't, but the a lot of the other competitors you have to glue in the guitar, and I don't like gluing anything to a bridge plate. So this is a peel and stick installation,
Nice.
and it sounds terrible when you try and glue it in, because most people are used to that kind of pickup. They want to glue it in. So, we voiced it and designed it so it was peel and stick. That was a box wall we weren't going to let go of. So, um, yeah, being a guitar maker, um, I do respect the guitar. And so we try to do as little damage to it as we can with or change it or alter it as little as we can with our electronics. And you know I'm kind of, we still do make some side mount preamps for less expensive guitars, but we were I'm pretty sure our company started the no cut movement with a good sound hole controller 15 or 20 years ago, with the Anthem. Oh, I forgot to mention the Anthem. That was the
Yeah, little pickup.
yeah. Um, y- Man, I tell you, that thing, we introduced that 13 years ago, and it was like the next evolution in our microphone mixing pickup system, and that has gone on to become a classic for us. And you know, we see him all over the place. We see him on the Grammys. We see him all over the place. And uh, I was just blown away the other day where we're just watching the Super Bowl and Post Malone comes on to sing America the Beautiful. And there he is, front and center with his guitar with an anthem in his sound hole. And like, you know, that's about as good as it gets.
But
So,
123 million people.
Yeah,
got,
yeah,
got
yeah,
a good look at that.
yeah. So, and I'm just like praying, don't fail, don't fail, don't fail, don't fail, which is which is another big thing that we work so hard on. Um, reliability. That's the only thing more important to us than sound and use a nice user interface is reliability. Is you never know, you know, who's going to be at your gig that could advance your career. And, you know, if your equipment goes down, you know, that I don't, we don't, our company just firmly believes we shouldn't take money for something that's not going to work.
you never want to have to worry about your equipment.
No, no. I mean, we all still do,
Well,
but
yeah.
you know, that's the other thing. We test every single thing that goes out of our building. We test every pickup. You know, we have a big QC department, every preamp, everything. We test it. It's got to work. We have a little guitar fixture that we put every undersaddle pickup in. That's like a kind of like a lap steel. The strings come down on it, and every single pickup. So, you know, we want, you know, and we don't want, and we insist it's our, you know, our responsibility to put things out, you know, to put products out that work.
Amazing. It just truly, it, how many working musicians carrying on your back, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
with this, that, and that's such a cool thought, because they grow into it.
sure.
They get big, and then things happen. But the guy in the trench is, I, I'm so grateful and everything to hear you say that, Lloyd. It it's the right thing.
Well, our company is really founded on values. Um, man, along the way, getting to our company, I had a bit of a detour. Um, we ran aground. You know, I pretty much stopped making guitars when I started trying to make the LB6. And then so then kind of fast forward, you know, about the time we had the LB6, I was married, had a daughter, had a little baby daughter, and we were broke, 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 broke. And so I took a job selling cars. And I sold cars for 4 years while I was learning how to build pickups better. And I'd stopped building guitars finally, but I was just building pickups and trying to build a business up and get out of debt. And so um, that was a pretty serious sojourn detour for me. But you know, the funny thing was I actually ended up liking it a lot. And it was the first time in my life I ever had any money. And even though we had been eating, you know, turkey hot dogs and cabbage and ramen and just, you know, trying to just, you know, just scrape by and put every cent we could in paying off our charge cards and which by the way is one of my big um crusades. Guys, if you're listening to me, credit debt is slavery. Pay off your cards and don't ever look back. You really shouldn't be buying anything you can't afford unless it's a dire emergency. So please, you'll be free. If you ever want to be free, pay off your credit cards.
Yeah.
Life 101.
Yeah.
You know, bottom line, life 101.
Yeah.
I just can't see how you and Richard could possibly get together with with what I'm hearing here, with values and company values and personal values. Gee, the two of you have nothing in common.
Oh no.
Just nothing in common. I just don't get it at all. I did a Super Bowl. I did Super Bowl 84 in 80. It was in 84, and it was the Washington and the Dolphins, and it was my job to press a button properly during the halftime show. And that was, yeah, you're standing there with 123 million people looking at your pickup, but boy, when you're standing there and you're realizing that you got it, it's a tape machine. It's a 1/4-inch tape machine. And it's got so many things that can go wrong with it. And
Oh,
everyone turns and looks at you for that 1 second. And then that was the job. 1 second, boom, do that. I mean, you
wow.
had, but yeah, it's a little pressure there.
Yeah. Wow.
And
Wow.
big fun. I mean, the whole after that 15 seconds was over with, it was like, I'm in the press box. It doesn't get better.
Yeah.
At that time, there were no luxury boxes in Pasadena, but it didn't get better than that. But I just don't understand how you and Richard get along.
Yeah, he's kind of tough to take.
Yeah.
He's great, man. Richard, he has held the course, right? Like it's being the leader of a company can be a real lonely place. Um, and
Yeah.
sometimes people don't get your vision and think you should do things different ways. And, um, you know, we've been blessed to be surrounded by an incredible group of people here that have bought into our vision and our methods. But it's like in those early days, it's lonely because maybe you don't have a bunch of people around you, you don't have a lot of success, you're doing something and nobody gets it, and so um it's lonely.
I'll give you the shout out from Mike Newsom, who was really helped put this thing together. And as he was saying, well, yeah, I've been here 22 years.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, Mike is one of our success stories. When he started here, he started as an assembler, and he was sleeping in his car in the parking lot. And so we have a number of people that started in high school and now they're in management here. And um, uh, I love that they grow with the company, and they've all got wonderful assets and lend them to the company. And that's another one of our values is. I realized maybe 8 or 10, maybe 10 years or so ago that our product, our product really isn't pickups or electronics. That's what we make, and that's the excuse. But our product is building people within our organization. And I remember coming out of college, man, I couldn't find my rear with two hands and a flashlight. And I was so lost, and life just looked like this huge uphill, I was just lost. And so I mean I've got a real heart for the 20 somethings that are just lost. And we've had a number of those join our ranks, and You know, I kind of feel like we're the Lost Boys, and just just trying to ramble forward and make a living for, scratch out a living for everybody, and do some good stuff while we're at it.
So behind you is the hi-fi,
Yes.
and there's that little eyeball between the two, E and the A and the
In the B.
yeah. There's that little eyeball in there, and
Let's see if I can get this a little closer.
yeah. Oh
There,
boy.
there you go. Yeah. So, as everything starts out here at our business R&D, um, things start out innocently enough with, hey, what would an anthem mic sound like with these hi-fis? Well, we answered that pretty quickly. It didn't sound that good. And the the hi-fis have a certain signature and need a certain complement. So then it turns out that for the style of mic that we make, which basically we're using some microphone technology that does a fairly good job of eliminating the sound of the inside of the guitar. Um, Inside of a guitar kind of sounds like a loose lug nut rattling around in a Volkswagen hubcap. It's not pretty. So we're trying to get rid of that, but retain the good stuff coming off the top. So everybody, people say they want their pickup system to sound like their guitar. No, they don't. What they really want it to sound like is if it's been recorded professionally. And that doesn't sound like your guitar either. But different guitars sound different when they're recorded professionally. So the grail was to make a microphone inside the guitar sound like it was outside the guitar in a studio. So it turns out that that spot where that particular mic is does the best job of eliminating the inside of the guitar while sounding like it's on the outside. And the Anthem mic just wouldn't fit there either. So we had to shrink that. Enter another year of abject pain in trying to make the thing work. And the thing that's really, really frustrating and kind of dangerous is if you get a good result too early, you're kind of hooked. And then you know it can happen. But the thing is, you don't know why it happened. So in the early days of prototyping anything, there's all these mistakes. You just make mistakes left and right. And so as you progress towards the final product, you really work on what you're trying to do is eliminate the human and get rid of the craftsmanship mistakes or happy accidents and things like that. So this mic was so small. Um, wow. We engineered this shock mount that the microphone capsule floats on about 300 grams of machine brass inside of the housing. The housing spun aluminum and then perforated with holes. This isn't plastic. There isn't a piece of plastic in this mic.
Wow.
And so then we made this shock mount that floats in a little capture in the rim that the mic mount sits in. And while we were prototyping the thing, the mic mount the capsule goes inside of it, but you screw it together, and it's supposed to bottom out with a certain thickness for the mic mount. Well, the sheet material would vary enough that if 1/4 turn would change the sound of the mic, of, you know, of pressure on the shock mount. And man, did I get an appreciation for microphone designers, and have come to believe that it's not just a great capsule and some great electronics that make a microphone and basic physics. The housing of the microphone is probably about as alive as a guitar is. So we've been down this rabbit hole hanging out with Johnny Depp and the, you know, Cheshire Cat, and it's been the craziest design adventure we've ever been on, to wrestle all the bits and pieces into submission to where they'll like, I can make 10 of them now. And they're all going to do the same. And again, back to that reliability thing. Some of the things we were doing during early on that worked, I would never let one of those out of the building, because I wouldn't trust that it would work at the Super Bowl. So um, that's been, you know, actually that's probably the biggest challenge of R&D is not losing the happy accident as you march forward to making it a product that you can rely on and depend on. And that's been the big challenge here.
Sounds like making a great record.
Yeah, maybe, or for that
You
matter,
know?
a guitar, you know. And
Yeah.
Yeah, you get that happy accident and you just kind of, oh, wow.
Yeah. And then let's
so
see how it acts after we ship it on United.
yeah. So then we had to come up with a circuitry, of course. And so this little guy up here is the controller, and that has the inputs, outputs, a mixer, so you can go back and forth between the pickups and the microphone, which still have a little bit of pickup in them. It's not like a percentage. It's a little bit of low frequency content we borrow from the hi-fis. But you can go all the way to mic, all the way to the pickups by themselves, and it's got a little battery check. And um, we made this one disappear into the sound hole as much as possible this time. You can see that
Yeah.
from a user standpoint, you know, you can barely see it. So at the time when we were using the cream color for our magnetic pickup, which I forgot to talk about, we did a sound hole magnetic pickup that had some body sensitivity to it that was a huge success for us, and people still use it all over the globe. And we were making it this kind of cream color. And when we introduced it, people were saying, "Why don't you make black ones? We don't like this. We want black ones." Well, our Ryan, our COO, used to say, "Well, we tried black, but it didn't sound as good."
Those cream, double cream PAFs, nothing like them.
Nothing like them, exactly.
Nothing like them.
Yeah. So anyway, um, when we did the Anthem sound hole controller, same thing, cream. And so I was pretty happy that we did that, because I might not have seen it in Post Malone's guitar on Sunday, but and it really helped establish our brand because it was so visible. But I feel we're at a point in our history where we don't need to try quite so hard to establish our brand.
No.
People trust us, people like us. You know, I mean, I think from a human equity standpoint, we're appreciated, and you know, we have trust, and so we don't feel like we need to. It's now it's okay to make things disappear, where before, you know, you know, if you'd wear a billboard hat that said LR Bags, I would have plugged it into the power, you know. So that was another thing we were working on, and that controller actually has more circuitry inside of it than the Anthem does.
Wow.
Well,
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 even if nobody had ever heard of LR Bags, the fact that Richard Hoover puts them in his guitars immediately elevates the status of,
Well, yeah, which kind of blew my mind seeing the hi-fis in Richard's private collection at the NOM
that
show. Like,
that was
what?
so many conversations with him about pickups and amplification, and the fact that when I did exactly the same thing. He said, "Oh, they'll all have these Bags pickups," and I went, "Okay,
Yeah.
sure." I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to say anything about something you say, Richard.
I've actually had people bring their vintage guitars, certain vintage guitars to me and want me to put a pickup in it, you know, over the years. And I've just said, oh, please, no, I really don't want to do this. This guitar is just, so that's another thing. Another one of my crusades is about keeping vintage guitars, the treasure vintage guitars off of loud stages, because they get vibrate. You know, a guitar top's like a pair of blue jeans. It's a little stiff when you buy it, and then pretty soon it just breaks in, and it's got this sweet spot of maybe a year or so where it's like, oh, it's just great. And then one too many washes, they're over the hill, right? So that's the same thing that happens to a guitar top on a loud stage. It just gets vibrated like it'll get, compared to playing it in your living room, it'll get a month worth of play equivalent in one weekend. And so I really hope that people are mindful about that. They don't know it. You know, I mean, you don't know it, that it could potentially ruin the tone of the instrument. It'll lose its highs and its punch sometimes. And so, you know, breaking in a guitar, it's actually breaking it. Breaking in is breaking, and there's an ideal amount of breakage, and then adios, it's over. So, you know, these vintage guitars will have a playing lifetime, and then they're going to go over the edge. And so it breaks my heart when I see these treasures get played on loud stages. So, you know, save them for your recordings. Just play them at home. You know, the audience after 3 or 4 beers, they're not going to know the difference between a pre-war Martin and a Takamine. Um, and I love talks, but I mean they won't know the difference. And so I'm pretty passionate about that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Ted,
I'm having fun, but I mean,
a complete captivating hour, and I think we should let this guy go.
Well, we should ask him if there's anything else you would like to tell us about. What are there any top secret things coming out in the next year that you want to let the universe know now? Or
Oh gosh. No, I don't think so. There are, but I shouldn't open my yap here. And have you guys ever read? I'm really not trying to um, even remotely suggest that I'm anything like Steve Jobs, but have you guys ever read his autobiography or his biography?
Yeah.
Oh, part of it.
It's really fascinating. He did this thing called a forcing mechanism, which he would put some crazy date or some crazy goal on stuff and then just demand that his people do that. So the NOM show is kind of our forcing mechanism. And sometimes, you know, it's the one big heartbeat a year. It's our forcing mechanism. And sometimes you take things to NAM that you're not really quite sure how to make yet. Just yesterday, we nailed the microphone suspension. We were optimistically hopeful. We wouldn't have taken it to NAM unless we believed we could solve the problem, that we were close. But we didn't really nail it till yesterday. And now it's like it is iced. We're really happy with the performance of the microphone. It's consistent. We know it's totally reliable. And, you know, so now we're on to doing the final tuning of the product because we can trust the microphone response. So, yeah, so, you know, we got a bunch of other irons in the fire, of course, because one of the things we love to do is invent stuff, but probably shouldn't. We do have, you know, that's one thing, you know, it's a fact of life that a lot of us, like Richard and Bob, you know, me, we're all getting older and we all have a shelf life. And, but we have, you know, so, you know, what's Sell Our Bags going to do when Lloyd's not there anymore? Well, we have got so many great products sitting, waiting to be developed, that in the pipeline already. And, you know, I have been so blessed. This last couple of years has been one of the most creative periods of my life. And I don't know, maybe I have COVID to thank for that. Like when COVID arrived, you guys probably thought, you know, we make musical equipment. By definition, it encourages socialization. So we thought we were dead. We thought it was over, and we thought we were going to be in the soup lines. And then this crazy hobby thing happened, and our business just really took off. I mean, we had growth instead of decline. But we were all still, most of us were working from home. And that, you know, I've got an old 1,000 square foot building in my home with all of my guitar making equipment from the years ago, and a Bridgeport mill and a lathe. And I can, you know, that's my happy place. I can go makes, just leave me alone and let me work on my Bridgeport for an hour, and I'm just stupid happy. So I got to do a lot of that during COVID. And you know, we just put our foot on the gas. So okay, we're going to survive this. And so instead of being conservative during that period of time, we all just said, hey, let's go for it, because this is going to end someday, and we want to be ready and come out swinging when it's over. So our guys just dug in and we made it work. And, you know, like us, we all survived.
Yeah.
We talked to so many players on podcasts during that period of time, and all of them felt like it wasn't really isolation, that what we were going to see was a real renaissance at the end of it, you know. And some really great things were gonna come out of it. And you and Tad are brothers of a different mother. Tad has 6 bandsaws.
Oh yeah.
20 minutes.
I only have 2. Well, actually 3. I only have 3. I'm weak.
Yeah, and it was, there's a
20 minutes before we started this podcast, I just fired up the 380 volt motor on this little Arboga mill that I just picked up recently.
Oh,
So now I know it works. Now I'm going to go, when the podcast is over, I'm going to get back over there and keep fixing that machine up. So,
oh, I love it.
There are 300 hand planes in drawers. This guy seriously has a machine problem. Where
Wow.
Richard says he has more than that. Don't let him tell you it's less than that. I've seen it. It's a mountain of things, and it's fantastic.
Oh, man.
It's okay.
Dad.
Be proud of it. Be proud of it.
tools
Dad,
are fun.
Ted, I have to drop a match on what I'm hoping or think. If you're not already there, I'd be surprised. But if you're not, I'm going to drop a match on dry tinder. Do you know about the Japanese katana pull planes?
Hmm.
Do you have any?
I do.
I mean, the stuff you can do with that. Those planes are like, I mean, you could just pull a piece of parchment shaving off 4 feet long.
Have you
And
seen the YouTube videos on the competitions for
yes,
shavings in Japan? Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah. I've never gotten mine dialed in quite to that level, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
We'll have to get together and talk about it sometime. Lloyd.
Yeah, man, I would love to see your tool collection. Oh my goodness.
Well,
That
if you ever
sounds
make it back up to Berkeley, you are welcome.
all right. Well, thank you.
I'm trying to add to his tool collection and telling him it's not going to rain tomorrow, but it sounds like it is. Lloyd, so much. What a pleasure.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure. I've really enjoyed the conversation with you guys. And I
Yeah,
love the opportunity thank you for the opportunity to share my story.
Well, let's plan on doing this again next year, shortly after NAMM, so you can tell us about
Yeah.
what other new good things have come out in the next year.
Okay. I will actually okay, let's book it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I'm booking it.
All right.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you. You guys too.
We hope you enjoyed this installment of the Santa Cruz Coffee Break. For more music-related fun, please join the Santa Cruz Guitar Players Forum at SCGCPF or santacruzguitarplayers.com. If you have any questions or possible podcast topics, please contact us. If you have a product or service that you feel would be of value to our listeners, please consider adding your support and keeping the coffee pot on. Contact us for more information. We ask that you hit the like, follow, bell, or bookmark buttons so we can keep you informed of upcoming podcast episodes. We hope you enjoyed Santa Cruz Coffee Break. Now it's time to go play your guitar.